I've got a confession to make. Back in 2020, I played Hollow Knight for the first time. I made it a few hours in, and I quit. That's right, I shelved the game with no anticipation of ever returning to it. And yet, here we are in 2025. I've played a few dozen hours of Hollow Knight, and I'm even making an entire series about my girlfriend playing through it. Clearly, I really like this game. One could even say that I love it. What happened? What changed? And why do so many people consider Hollow Knight one of the best games that the medium has to offer? Give me a few minutes, and let's talk about it. Let's start simply. It's clear that Hollow Knight is a great game. I mean, many people rank it as one of their all-time favorites. But why? What elevates this game above its Metroidvania brethren? Well, I don't think I can answer that question definitively, but speaking for myself, the first element that strikes gold is the game's world. Without question, one of the most compelling components of Hollow Knight is this vast, mysterious land that you get to explore. From the get-go, it's draped in this mysterious melancholy enhanced by the game's soundtrack. It's a world that feels, in spite of its numerous hostiles, quiet, subdued. It's as if the land has fallen asleep, but not in some apocalyptic sense. It's just resting. It's only when you travel underground that things feel more alive, but even then, there's a cozy composure to the space around you. Its proceedings may be occasionally or even often chaotic, but I still feel as though I'm always outfitted with a warm blanket and a cup of hot chocolate. This stuff matters. Regardless of what happens in a game's world, it needs to make the player feel welcomed. I should want to be a part of it. Now, that doesn't mean that Hollow Knight's vibes and atmosphere are the only appropriate approach. Different players seek different feelings. I love nothing more than immersing myself in some twisted tale of survival horror, while others couldn't be paid to do so. We're unique in our tastes, and yet there's something about the setting of Hollow Knight that seems to be relatively universal in its appeal. For some reason, we all want to be here. Perhaps that desire stems not just from the feel of this place, but its tangible design. I'm the first to admit that I'm no Metroidvania expert. I've never actually finished the original Metroid and haven't even laid a finger on Castlevania Symphony of the Night. When it comes to crafting the genre's perfect layout, I'm not sure how much help I'd really be, but still, I've played a lot of games, Metroidvania or otherwise. I know a good world when I see one. In my estimation, you need a few elements for a great video game world, in any genre really. Most importantly in a Metroidvania though is a sense of wonder. You need a big space. You need pathways that twist and turn for miles. You need plenty of inaccessible paths with the promise that eventually you'll be able to return with your new abilities to see what each holds. But it's not that simple. So too do you need plentiful level variety, especially in a 2D game. There's nothing worse than growing bored with the same backgrounds and assets ad nauseum. Finding a fresh environment can be as materially rewarding as a key or double jump. As you may be able to guess, or perhaps already know, Hollow Knight covers all of these bases. Again, I don't know that I can say that one element is vastly superior to every other game I've played in the genre, but Hollow Knight is just so consistently competent. The scope of the world, for example, is massive. Is it the biggest though? I'm not sure, but when I'm knee-deep in the vegetation of Greenpath, comparison doesn't really matter anymore. Comparison, though, pertains to one of the most compelling questions surrounding this game. Why is Hollow Knight so beloved? I'm not just talking about its respectable review scores or remarkable sales numbers, but the incredibly passionate fanbase that produces endless fan art and discussions. There's something special about this one. Certainly, all of its individual parts contribute to its accumulated idolatry. The combat feels tactile and rewarding, the various enemies and bosses feel distinct while possessing a coherent overall design, the aforementioned soundtrack is beautiful and alluring in equal measure. Many games struggle to achieve even one of these elements, so to see a game that manages to nail so many of them is a rare sight indeed. Of course, Hollow Knight doesn't exist in a vacuum. I can't possibly go through this entire video without mentioning the silky elephant in the room. That's right, I'm talking about Silksong, the Hollow Knight DLC that has long since ballooned into a full-blown sequel. To say that this game is highly anticipated is, honestly, such an understatement that it borders on comedic. The level of fervor surrounding this release feels like something that only occurs once in a generation. Of course, even a relatively small group seems large if they're loud enough, but considering that Hollow Knight has sold millions of copies, the word small just doesn't seem applicable here. Silksong, once expected to release years ago, has still not even been given a firm release date as of February 2025. Beyond that, developer Team Cherry has grown increasingly quiet about its progress, almost as if they hope their silence will stoke the flames of anticipation. It seems to be doing just that, and I genuinely believe that Hollow Knight has experienced a heightened level of notoriety based upon its conspicuously absent sequel. But enough about what we don't yet have. If you're a regular viewer of the channel, you've likely seen my series of videos where I chronicle the journey of my girlfriend Ellie playing through Hollow Knight for the first time. These My Girlfriend Versus videos are always fun to make regardless of the game that we're covering, but typically we spend one episode on each game and then move on to another. Hollow Knight is the only game that's received multiple episodes at this point by popular demand. This has enabled her to play the game much deeper than the initial few hours, and has provided me with an entirely fresh perspective of the game. To witness her reactions to new environments, her euphoria from defeating a difficult boss, or just her smile when discovering something new while backtracking, highlights for me how purely enjoyable Hollow Knight is. It challenges her, occasionally sending her down into the depths of hopeless video game frustration, but that's part of the experience. Every victory rejuvenates and brings back the optimistic baseline she's maintained while playing.
Please watch this video. Please give it a lot of views so I can keep going. Please, please, please.
That's her experience, of course, but what about me? I can speak all day about the traits of the game, but what about my journey with Hollow Knight? To be completely honest, I struggle to recall much about my initial hours with the game. As I mentioned, it was way back in 2020, which was already plenty of time for the game to have developed its remarkable reputation. All I know is that I got a few hours in and I bailed. If memory serves, I'd recently reached Green Path, but it just wasn't pulling me in. It wasn't that I thought the game was bad, far from it, but regardless, it just wasn't gripping me. I suspect it was likely more to do with me than the game itself. Sometimes even the time of day or day of the week can limit my capacity for enjoyment. Let's say Hollow Knight is a hamburger. Saturday night, for example, might be a heaping helping of french fries, creating a match made in heaven. Sunday afternoon, though, may be chocolate, which doesn't go with a burger in the same way. Am I making any sense? No? Okay. I left the game to collect digital dust on my PlayStation 4 until a few weeks later, the Hollow Knight gods intervened. An old boss of mine had asked me to dog sit while he was out of town. It would just consist of one night spent at his apartment to make sure his canine companion didn't get up to any trouble. I packed light for the job, but amongst my toothbrush and white noise machine was my trusty PS4. For some reason, once I was settled in on the couch, Hollow Knight called my name. I popped it open, expectations absent, and began to play. Soon enough, an hour had gone by, and then two. Before I knew it, this entire night with nothing to do had almost ended. Hollow Knight had completely engrossed me. It's difficult to articulate why it clicked here and now, but it did. In this day and age, I possess an all too common tendency of bouncing off a game within the first hour or two if it's not immediately grabbing me. I can't count how many titles I've passed up for this reason, and to some degree, I think that's a good thing. I've got a big old backlog, as I've discussed, so there's only time to play so many games. If something's not doing it for me, we gotta move on. And yet, that's what I did with Hollow Knight, a game that I've come to enjoy personally, but also one that's grown my YouTube channel more than any other. Look at all that I would have missed had I not given it another chance. A night of aimless dog sitting freed me to dive in properly and see what Hollow Knight truly had to offer. Hollow Knight, it appears to me, is one of those games that manages to tap into the gaming zeitgeist in a way that the vast majority of its contemporaries cannot. There's just some stuff out there, regardless of the medium, that captures a group of people and turns them into lifelong fans. People that don't just consume the work of art, but dream about it, theorize about it on Reddit, or even create their own art in response. As a creator, you can't ask for much more than that. This game is one of those works, and I imagine its successor will be too. Hopefully, one of these days, we'll be able to bask in Silksong's glory and make countless video essays about that game too. But for now, it felt apt to shed a little light and a little love on its fabled predecessor. I want to issue an extra special thank you to my patrons who help make these videos possible. If you enjoyed this video, why not check out our aforementioned Hollow Knight series? Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.